message to religious voters in this election was not that he was cut from the same cloth as religious folks, particularly conservative religious folks. He was married 3 times, children from multiple women, made a lot of his money in casinos. It was very clear that he was not cut from the same cloth as many of the voters he was appealing to. And so his appeal had to be more practical, more pragmatic. And it was that Donald Trump was telling religious voters, I'm the only one who cares about you in this race. I'm the only one who will protect you. And I'm willing to fight for you. And for particularly a conservative religious community that saw over the last decade rising religious disaffiliation in America. We have the highest number of religiously unaffiliated Americans we've ever had in our country, which the numbers may sound, America is still a profoundly religious nation. So about 1 in 5 Americans are religiously disaffiliated. That means that 3 in 4 are belong to a religious tradition. 75 to 80% of Americans say that they believe in God. About 70% of Americans are Christian. And so religion still matters in deep ways. About 40% say religion guides their daily decision making. That does not change the fact that there are trends in culture and in the basic sort of social makeup of America that had particularly Christians feeling insecure and vulnerable in ways that the history of Christians in America did not prepare them to deal with. Obviously, Jewish Americans and Muslim Americans and those of minority faiths have felt vulnerable for a long time. But Christians are kind of being confronted with questions they've never been asked before. So Donald Trump tells them, look, all of this, all that sort of occurred over the last decade, it really isn't real. The problem is that you've been silenced, that the government has been silencing you, and that you haven't had someone willing to fight for you, willing to break some rules for you. Let me give you a good example of this. I'm sure you all are familiar with the infamous Access Hollywood comments of our president, where he talked about inappropriately touching women. These comments came out just right before the second presidential debate. And so Anderson Cooper of CNN was the moderator for that debate, and he asked Trump, he said, you called what you said locker room banter. You described kissing women without consent. That is sexual assault. You brag that you have sexually assaulted women. Do you understand me? To which Trump replied, I apologize to the American people. Certainly I'm not proud of it, but this is locker room talk. You know, when we have a world where you have ISIS chopping off heads, where you have, and frankly, drowning people in steel cages, where you have wars and horrible, horrible sights all over, where you have so many bad things happening, this is like medieval times. We haven't seen anything like this carnage all over the world. Trump framed concern with what he characterized as typical male speech as a luxurious distraction, basic morality as a weakness in the face of evil. Again, Trump's outreach to religious people consisted of telling them he was the only one who could save them and the country from what was coming: terrorism, a loss of religious freedom, the ratification of abortion as a moral good, and that he would offer them not just protection but power. His message was to affirm conservative Christian sense of isolation and vulnerability and to offer himself as the only way out. The Clinton campaign's response to this was to virtually ignore broad swaths of the religious electorate. Hillary Clinton did not directly ask broad swaths of the electorate for their vote. She did not do interviews with major religious press outlets. In the last year of her campaign, she did not do events with religious communities. She did not hire a faith outreach staffer until the summer, before the campaign. All of this worked to basically, again, at the same time that Christians were feeling isolated, ignored, under pressure, and Donald Trump was telling them, I'm the only one who cares about you, the Clinton campaign's entire strategy basically worked to affirm exactly what Trump was saying. Clinton's ignoring of these voters basically told them, you're right, you do have something to fear if I'm elected. You won't have a seat at the table if I'm president. A good anecdote that shows this is 2 days after the election, the New York Times reported that Clinton supporters in South Bend, Indiana, the home of the Fighting Irish, University of Notre Dame, had asked the Clinton campaign to send Hillary to a St. Patrick's Day event. Previous Democratic presidential candidates had attended. Indiana statewide officials were going to attend the rally. Clinton's own supporters on the ground, with their ear to the ground, asked the campaign to send Hillary. The message they received back from the highest reaches of the campaign was, and I'm paraphrasing but it's a very close paraphrase, white Catholics are not a constituency Hillary needs to go after in this election. They're 17% of the electorate. She certainly wasn't going after white evangelicals, 26% of the electorate. That's slicing the margin pretty close. If your goal, as they say in the campaigns, and as I write about the book, the mantra around Democratic campaigns these days is 50 plus 1, 270 electorates, which basically means that our goal is not to reach out to the whole country, but if we get 50% plus 1, that's our primary goal, which at a very technical level, that's true, right? You get 50% of the vote plus 1 and you win. You get 270 electorates, it doesn't matter what else happens. But if that is your aim, if that is your North Star, then what it means is that you cut the margins closer than you need to. There are a lot of tweaks that could have been, Hillary essentially lost by 90,000 votes. There are a lot of ways in a country as big as America to pick up 90 votes. But I sure would have loved to have tested what it would have looked like if Hillary would have offered a compelling message to a broad swath of religious voters. Instead, and this is the sort of last comment I'll say, traditionally in Democratic campaigns, when activist groups come and make demands, you're typically able to say, look, I'm with you in spirit, but look, we're running against a war hero. We're running against a business guy like Mitt Romney who looks like a president, but we can't, we're with you in spirit, but we can't go where you want us to go. In 2016, they couldn't or weren't willing to say that. A big reason was because no one believed Donald Trump could become president. And so instead, one of the positions they took was, for the first time in 40 years, since the Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade, the Democratic platform advocated for taxpayer funding of abortion. First time in 40 years. It was typically a bipartisan policy. All of the Democrats in the Senate just about had voted for the Hyde Amendment in just the last couple of years. But now the Democratic platform, the dogma was Democratic Party no longer just supports the legality, but actually views abortion as a social good, as something that the government should fund and support directly with taxpayer funding. This was foolhardy not only because even if Hillary Clinton had won, no budget is passing with a repeal of the Hyde Amendment. So it was basically a messaging act. It was basically about leverage. Number two, it threw votes away. Between that and Hillary Clinton's response in the third debate, which was to defend the procedure of partial birth abortion, was the ban against it was upheld by the Supreme Court. All she had to say was, the Supreme Court has decided on this. It's a moot issue. Instead, she gave a 2-minute long answer trying to parse things out. It was contrary to her entire history in presidential politics. Remember, it was her husband who invented the phrase safe, legal, and rare. It contradicted everything that she had done working her way through Arkansas politics in the South, defending her position on these issues, and instead showed that Democrats were going to keep the pressure on this constituency that was already feeling very pressure. If Democrats believe their rhetoric about the threat that Donald Trump posed, which I think they should have taken it seriously, I think we all should. We're going to see that again tonight when Donald Trump gives his speech to the joint session of Congress, where again we're going to see the cost of our political failure to defeat him when he's cutting budgets by 25%, when he's cut the social safety net programs. And we risked all that so we could put a repeal of the Hyde Amendment on the platform. Again, there are a lot of different ways you could look at it, a lot of different ways to pick up the 90,000 votes. But for some reason, the Democrats picked ignoring the faith community as the one thing to risk. With that, I think I'll leave it there. I'm looking forward. I know that's like a really heavy introduction to like, hi, how are you? My favorite color is blue. My favorite book's Never Let Me Go, which is a great British book, so we can talk about that after this. But I did want to kick off with that and provide some discussion, because look, we need strong parties in America and in the UK and that believe that government could be a force for the common good. Mm-hmm. And if we throw that away, if we weaken our own position, not through an unwillingness to compromise, right? My argument is not that Hillary Clinton should have all of a sudden become pro-life. My argument is that she shouldn't. In a presidential campaign, shove a stick in the eyes of a pro-life community that would vote for her over a misogynist, xenophobic guy like that. You just have to invite people in, just like Barack Obama did. I have an entire chapter in my book. In the first 5 months of Barack Obama's presidency, he goes to the University of Notre Dame, the exact same town where Hillary Clinton's campaign declined to even send Hillary Clinton, and gave a speech not on what we would typically talk to Catholic communities about, which is poverty or environmental justice, but he gave a speech on how we could work together to reduce abortions. The political promise of that was a failure. We were not able to, for a number of reasons which I write about in the book, we were not able to roll out a policy platform that brought together the pro-life and pro-choice communities. But the practical effect of the president's policies is that the abortion rate is at the lowest it's been in our country since Roe v. Wade. Yeah. The lowest it's been. Lower than under George W. Bush, lower than under Ronald Reagan, and it happened under Barack Obama, who the pro-life folks said would be the most pro-abortion president ever. And yet, Hillary Clinton did not, in that debate when she was asked about abortion, say, I'm going to continue the legacy of Barack Obama and make sure that abortions continue to be lower, not through restricting abortion, but through providing women and families with the support they need. Instead, she was arguing about, well, maybe partial birth abortion is justified here, even though it's banned, and maybe we're going to roll that back. It just doesn't make political sense, and frankly, it doesn't make moral sense to me, and those are things we could debate about. Well, I'll leave it there and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you.